Can you guys hear me all right? Yes? Awesome. All right, welcome everybody. Today's class is on Malasana, so full squat pose, or Garland pose. Really what it refers to as is a mala, right? We use for meditation. So a garland, that's what a mala is. That's what the word refers to as Garland pose. So we often say that that is full squat, but I'm also going to take you from that to the variation where you actually are wrapping the arms around the knees in what is also considered Garland pose. So we'll do both. But the idea of this pose, I chose it for right now because it is a pose that brings you close to the center, brings you close to what is the deepest part of you, right? Squat pose brings you down into first chakra energy, brings you down close to that downward energy of the earth, but at the same time requires you to be extending upwards. So you get that feeling of there being a unified energy of those opposites going up and down. At the same time, your knees are wide, but you have to hug in. So there's this unification that draws you closer to understanding where your center is, right? So that's why I'm choosing Garland pose or squat pose for today. So that's the attitude, right, of all of those energies that in you that are moving in all of these different directions, is that they have the power to pull you apart, right, if you're following one versus the other. But they also have the ability to give you reference for where center actually is, right? So I want you to remember that when you're working with your hips, especially, and we're working with the emotional self in the hips a lot, is that everything that you feel has the power to pull you apart, and it also has the power to bring you back to where your center is. Right? So Garland pose is literally wrapping yourself, right? Making that circle of a garland and bringing yourself back to the center instead of what is the periphery or what's pulling you away. So find a comfortable seat if you're not there already. Let your eyes close. Just feel your breath as a circle for a moment. So the inhale rises to the top of your awareness, and then it falls over the edge into the exhale. And the exhale is like that other side of the circle. And at the end of the exhale, you feel the natural sweeping back up into the inhale. On the exhale, you feel that natural just falling down through the breath with the breath. And then inhaling again, and it's a natural thing, right? You don't have to tell yourself every time to inhale and exhale. It just happens. So you're just feeling the breath moving as a circle. And finding yourself in the flow of the breath, not the inhale or the exhale, but the actual motion of the breath, that actual circling energy. Find yourself as that. If you had to pinpoint where the center of your breath was, where does your mind say that it is? Or is there a feeling that there is no center, there's only the continuous motion, the upward and the downward, the upward and the downward, there is no center. The whole thing is center. Following the breath, a couple more cycles. And let the hands come to rest at the heart center, palm to palm. We'll open with the sound of Om. Deep breath in. And let the eyes float open. Nice, you guys. You can release your hands, please. Come forward, come onto your backs. Oh boy. Come onto your backs, bend your knees, plant your feet. Hi, Virginia, welcome. Make sure you have a block. So on your back, knees bent, heels or feet underneath your knees. Knees should be hip width apart. So it's like you're setting up for bridge pose, but you're not going to come up into bridge immediately. I want you to just start to feel again as you relax into the floor, find the back of your rib cage floating to the floor. So you might actually have to draw in your abdominals to get that to happen. So try to draw those lower rib cage, that lower rib cage down And as you draw the lower rib cage down, can you feel a slight lifting of your sternum? So it's like you're pulling the chest in both directions. The lower ribs go down, so your middle back gets more full on the floor. But then against that, or with that, you're also lifting the sternum up, lengthening your throat. Good. And then I want you to tilt your pelvis into an arch. So your lower back arches. So you're taking the top of your pelvis and tilting it forward towards your heels, arch your lower back. So you feel the back of your sacrum actually pull up off the floor, tailbone rolls forward and down. And then reverse that and tuck your tail so that you feel the back of your sacrum rolling down to the floor. Good. And then continue to pelvic tilt, just rolling with your breath. So the inhale, you arch the spine, tipping the tail forward. Then as you exhale, you take the low back to the floor as you round and pull the tail up. Good. So do that a couple more times. Because if you get focused in squat pose on just your pelvis as being your hips, or it being a hip opener, that your hips have to be open, then you're going to miss this fundamental thing where what allows you to go down into that squat pose easily is not just your hips, it's the relationship of your hips to your pelvis, your legs to your pelvis. So the lower back, if it's caught or it's tight, is going to make it very difficult for you to be comfortable in squat. If the groin muscles are in a position that is not optimal or tight, it's going to be very difficult to feel comfortable in squat. We don't usually think of those as being part of our hips, but they are. Good. A couple more pelvic tilts, just warming up, finding the feeling of what tilting the pelvis around your thigh bones actually feels like. Good. And then try to find what feels like neutral, somewhere in between that arched position and the tail tucked position. And what neutral should feel like is maybe that you actually go to that arched position first. Good. So you really press your thighs down towards the floor, the tops of your thighs down. And then you may try to maintain that feeling of downward pressure, but you start to draw your low belly up so that your hip points actually pull up away from your thighs. So they start to tilt up towards your ribs. At the same time, you draw your low ribs down, get broad across your middle back again. Good. And then press into your feet just a little bit, drag your heels back so it feels like you're pulling your butt towards your heels as you lift your hip points away from your thighs. And you keep breathing wide into the back of your middle ribs. And then don't forget your sternum does a little lift towards the top of your head. Good. So you're actually beginning to just traction your own spine here. Nice. Now remember what this feels like. Set your arms into robot arms, bend the elbows, fingertips up towards the ceiling. Good. And then try and maintain this feeling on your pelvis, but lift your hips up into bridge. So draw the ribs up, lift the hips, keep dragging back on the heels. And then can you find this feeling of, again, maybe overarching your lower back? So again, tipping forward with your tail and the top of your pelvis. And then from there, drawing in the low belly to lift the hip points back up. But you keep that softness at the top of your thighs where it meets your groin or where it meets your hips. Good. Drag back on your heels, knees move towards the tips of your toes. Nice. And then release the hips down to the floor. Good. And then press into your arms. Again, rise up into bridge. And again, overarch your lower back. So try to do that pelvic tilt while you're in bridge. It might drop your hips a little bit. That's fine. But I want you to get into the action of, I can tilt my pelvis in this position. Good. So as you tilt forward, it's going to arch the lower back more. And then draw up through your low belly, lift through the top of your hip points. You're still in that arch, but you're trying to balance it with that opposite action. Good. And then lower the hips back down to the floor. Nice. And you're going to do one more. So again, adjust if you need. You're pressing into the feet, drag back on your heels so that as you lift your hips, your knees are not falling towards your shoulders. Your thighs are actually pulling long towards the tips of your toes. And then overarch the lower spine again. So tilt the pelvis up in your bridge pose. Yep. So it's going to drop the hips a little bit. You're going to feel a softening at the top of your thighs. And then keeping that softness there, draw in the low belly, lift your hip points towards your lower ribs and draw your lower ribs down towards your hip points. And then drag on the feet again to get that length on your thighs. Good. So now if you want to go higher, you got to use your butt and you got to use your armpits instead of pressing your thighs up. Good. And then lower the hips back down to the floor. Nice job. Good. Take the right knee in towards your chest, please. Squeeze it in. As you squeeze that shin in, press the shin back against your hands. So again, you're making space. You're hollowing the top of the thigh away from the belly away from the top of the thigh. Don't let your tail curl up, please. So you keep your tail almost in that, reaching for that arched position. Good. One more breath, pressing through the shin. Nice. And then release that foot down to the floor. Take the left knee in towards your chest, squeezing in. Good. So you squeeze it in as far as it wants to go first. So you bring it into its range of motion, right? How far the thigh wants to come in. Then you add the resistance. So you press your shin back against your hands, draw your navel down and up. So you're actually, again, hollowing the low belly away from the thigh as you press the thigh away. Good. And the idea here is that, again, you're waking up the muscles of the legs that are not just your quads, not just your hamstrings, right? We're trying to get into those stabilizer muscles. Good. Tilt your tail slightly forward, pelvis slightly forward. Nice. Shaking a little bit is great. Good. And then release that foot down to the floor. Nice job. Take both legs up to the sky. Yep. And try and find where, again, you take the tops of your thighs away from your belly just a little bit more so you feel more of your lower back find the floor. It might mean your abdominals have to do a little bit of work. Good. Stretch your arms out wide, letter T. And again, find that pressing down through the low part of your ribs. So your middle back is getting really connected to the floor. Nice. And then feet are flexed. So you're pushing up through the undersides of your heels. As you press up through the undersides of your heels, press down through your low back. Good. And then start to let your legs drop wide towards the straddle, nice and slow. So don't just throw them out there, but press wide as though you're pressing your feet out against a heavy surface. Good. And then when you think you've gone as far out as you can go, right, your legs are as wide as they can go, start to squeeze in the other direction. So squeeze the inner thighs in, start to bring the legs back together, straight up and down. Good. You're keeping them in line with your pelvis though. So you're not letting them fall forward. You're not letting them fall towards your belly either. Again, press wide, press your legs out into that straddle, nice and slow. Good. Press, 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 press. Keep your low back pressing down to the floor. Good. Take those inner heels spinning up. Nice. And then squeeze the feet back towards each other. Squeeze the legs back towards each other. Again, nice and slow. Good. And then press the legs out wide. So Josh, pull your legs up to vertical a little bit more. There you go, right there. Press wide, press wide, press wide. It's the pressing that really matters here. Keep reaching out through the underside of your heels. Good. And then bring them all the way back up, squeezing, 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 squeezing. Imagine doing this with a resistance band. One more time, take the legs out wide, press wide, push, push, push. Good, keep your ribs anchored to the floor. Nice. And then squeeze in, squeezing the inner thighs, straight legs, press out through your heels. Yep. Nice. And then bring the knees in towards your chest. Good, hug, hug, hug. Take your right thigh on top of your left. So you're wrapping the legs like you would for eagle. So the inner thigh and the outer shin are pressing together. Don't double wrap the ankles though. Yeah, so don't hook the ankles, don't hook the feet. Just do the thighs and the shins. Flex your feet, please. Good. And so you're pressing your shins together. That's my primary focus for you, is you're pressing your shins against each other. And I want you to almost try and pull your thighs apart. So you press your shins together, you pull your thighs apart, and then from your low belly, arms can still be wide here, start to draw your knees in towards your chest. Good. As you draw your knees in towards your chest, you keep your low belly pulling in so that you're pressing down through your lower back. Good. Don't squeeze so hard that you make yourself cramp. Sarah's like, too late. Good. Now start to extend your legs straight out parallel to the floor just a little bit. Keep the legs wrapped. So push out through the heels so your thighs move away from your belly. Good. And then start to squeeze the knees back in. Keep your shins connected to each other, please. Good. And then press the thighs out. Good. Again, doesn't have to come completely straight, not at all, just a little bit. And then start to bring the knees back in. Again, we're getting into those thigh creases, the ability to move through the thigh creases without you forcing them there. Take the legs forward again. Keep your low ribs on the floor. And then squeeze the knees back in. Good. Try to bring them as high up as they'll go. Just press your low back down to the floor at the same time. And then last time, take your legs forward. Good. Ribs down. And then pull the knees back in towards the chest. Squeeze. Awesome. Good. Separate your feet, please. Reach for your ankles or your shins. Leg is still crossed. Right thigh is still on top of left. Just separate your feet. Reach for your ankles or your shins. Go Mukhasana. Good. Literally every single pose that I'm teaching that is a hip opener, an external hip opener, I make this comment, so I'll say it again, so it really imprints on your mind, that if you want your hips to be really comfortable rotating externally, open, like pigeon or like squat, you need to work internal rotation. This is an internally rotated position for your hips. Good. And then unwind your legs, please. Hug the knees in towards your chest. Nice. And then take your left leg on top of your right, wrapping the legs like you would for eagle. So the inner thighs and the outer shins are touching. So press your shins against each other. That's where the focus is. Find your low rib cage on the floor. So we start with the shins parallel. So your knees are in line with your hips and your shins are parallel to the floor as best you can. Flex your feet so your legs are active. Again, the activity of your legs is squeezing your shins, not squeezing your thighs. So hug your shins, almost feel like you're pulling your thighs apart. And then the low belly starts to draw in to draw the knees in towards your chest. Good. Nice. Keep your low ribs on the floor and then start to extend the legs forward. Don't rock. No momentum here. Good. And then start to draw the knees back in. Again, you're working through those muscles of the hip flexors. By pressing out wide through your thighs while the legs are wrapped, you're getting into your IT bands, your outer hips. Take the legs forward again. Good. Bring the knees back in. Keep your low back anchored, rib cage drawing down and wide. Don't forget your sternum does a little lift at the top. Take the legs forward again. Good. And then draw them back in. This will also tell you, if this is very difficult for you to do, that those low belly muscles, hip flexors, are not used to being used. Take your legs forward, which is not unusual. So don't be upset if that's what you feel like. And then draw the knees back in. Good. Last time, take the legs forward. And then draw them back in. Keep your ribs down. Nice. Keep the knees stacked where they are. Separate your feet. Reach for your ankles or your shins. Good. Breathe into your lower back. Nice, you guys. Good. So squat is working with gravity because we want to go with that gravity energy to move the pelvis down. But to not put so much pressure on the knees, we also have to have this upward energy of the spine. So we can't just do one, have to do both. So the lower back has to be accessible and the rotation of your thighs in your hip sockets has to be well understood so that you can find the angle where squat is possible. Unwind your legs, hug your knees in towards your chest. Good. Nice. Plant your feet. Set your arms to robot arms. Come up to bridge. Yep, lift your hips, lift your ribs. Try and find that pelvic tilt again, where you are tilting like you're arching your lower back. So it's gonna feel like maybe your hips drop a little bit and the tops of your thighs soften. Good, and then you're dragging back on your heels. Draw your low rib cage down. Nice. Good, you guys. And then slowly release the hips down to the floor. Beautiful. Right ankle comes on top of left thigh. Good. Let your legs or let your feet drop to the left. Yep. To your left. Yep. So your right foot is going to come flat to the floor and you're lifting that knee up towards the ceiling. So the foot stays crossed. Good. Kristen, you might put it on the inside of your thigh instead of all the way to the outside. Yes. Yep, that works too. Good. So you're lifting that right knee up towards the ceiling and allowing the right rib cage and that right side of your low back to reach for the floor. Good. You're still keeping that right ankle against the top of your left thigh. Nice. And again, if this feels like a position where there's really nowhere for your spine to go, let the knee fall towards your belly just a little bit again. And then with your knee falling towards your belly, start to move your low back down towards the floor, right? So that change in the angle of your thigh allows your pelvis to move differently. This is the point of doing this, right? So that you understand if I move my thigh this way, I get this availability in my back. If I do this with my back, it does this to my pelvis or my hips, right? So understand your rotation, that drawing the knee in towards the midline gives you more access to opening your lower back. Good, one more breath. And then come back up to center, please. Keep that right ankle on top of the left thigh. Step your left foot wider to the left and then drop your knees to the right. Good. Arms can be wide here or reaching overhead to hold opposite wrists. Nice. So similar feeling again here. If the knees do not appreciate this position, having the ankle stacked on top, you can step it down, but keep the feet just as wide so that you have that same stretch happening on your left thigh as it goes up into your hip, into your lower back. And I want you to be aware of this relationship of how the upper body being tight or restricted affects what the lower body can do and vice versa. So if your ribs are arched here, see what you can do to draw your low ribs in, get broader through your middle back. Good. And then bring yourself back up to center, please. Nice, release that right foot down to the floor and take the left ankle on top of the right thigh. Good, drop your feet open to the right or drop your legs to the right. Left foot stays flat on the floor. Start to draw that knee up towards the ceiling. And then at the same time, you're drawing the low belly back and wide so that the back of your left side sacrum and your left rib cage can be reaching for the floor. Good. And again, if it seems like there's nowhere that your body can possibly go in this position, let the knee fall forward towards your belly again, change the angle, and then see if you can draw the low back wider and down towards the floor. So work that openness first, then you will eventually be able to get to the point where that rotation happens, where your knee can come back up towards the ceiling. Good. But I promise you, there's no convincing your hips and your thighs and your groins that if you just keep pushing in the same position that they're going to get there and be happy about it. You might get to that full squat, but it'll hurt. So pay attention to that connection. Right? What brings you back to the center? Good. Come all the way back, please. Left ankle stays on top of right thigh. Step your right foot wider to the right and then drop your knees open to the left. Good. And again, you're drawing your rib cage down and in, so you're getting broad across your middle back. You're trying to find the right side sacrum now, letting that relax down towards the floor. And again, if the knee is aggravated, having the ankle or the weight of the other leg stacked on top of it, then you step it down, but keep your feet just as wide so that you find that stretch on the outer hip and thigh. Good. Nice, you guys. Good, one more breath, really reaching through that left side body, it's your right side body, ribs reaching down towards the floor. And then slowly release the legs, come back. Hug your knees in towards your chest. Good. Roll forward and back on your spine. Nice, bring yourself up to sit. Good. Bottoms of the feet together, Baddha Konasana, grab your block. Good, if you need to sit up on a blanket here, you absolutely can. So if you need a blanket underneath your seat, you can grab it if you want one. Okay. Blanket's probably better. Take your block, please. You're gonna place it between your feet on its narrowest setting. Right? So the block comes between your feet. If you need the feet to be a little bit further out in front of you to be able to maintain, again, the neutral pelvis where you're not curling back or falling back on your sit bones, have the feet be as far forward as you need them to be, not the issue here. So with the block between the feet, narrowest setting, press your feet into the block. Big toe mounds press into the block, baby toe mounds press down to the floor. Good. And then for a moment, feel your knees squeeze up. So as you're pressing into your feet, you squeeze your knees up. And then start to tilt forward on your pelvis. You're squeezing the block, squeezing the knees, tilt forward, lengthen your spine, keep squeezing. Good. Nice, nice, nice. One more breath, squeezing the knees and the feet. Good, and then release just the squeeze of the knees. So let the knees drop wide as you tilt forward more on your pelvis, extend from your lower back. My suggestion is to walk your arms out forward instead of reaching underneath you. Good, keep pressing your feet into the block. Nice. Good, so the remembrance, right? I ask you to squeeze the knees up first so that you remember that in hip opening, if you only go wide, you're more likely to actually over rotate. And then you have no support, you have no stability, and your joints don't like that. So you want to have this feeling of actually hugging in so that your joints can be in an open position, but they don't feel like they're without anything underneath them, right? Without anything that's going to keep them safe. And that's first chakra energy, right? We act differently when we don't think that we're safe. Come back up to center. Good. Change your block to the next widest setting. So turn it down. Yep, between your feet. Good. So you're still pressing the feet into the block. Same thing. Press your feet into the block, squeeze your knees up, and then start to tilt forward on your pelvis. Walk forward into your forward fold. Good. Squeezing, 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 pressing down through the baby toes, hugging the knees. Good. So the hug of the knees up means that you have to push your butt back, right? This is how you get actual stretch for your groins, right? You squeeze in and then you press back. Good. Walking the arms forward, and then release the squeeze of the knees, but keep pressing the feet into the block. Let yourself go a little deeper. Good. And if deeper doesn't happen, just stay where you are. It's also the truth about lower back and hip work that if you try to push too fast, is you won't actually get anywhere except to a painful place. So you give your pelvis as much time as it needs. Good. And then walk yourself back up. All right. So third setting, widest setting, turn your block wide. Bottoms of the feet to the edges of the block. Curl your toes back. Again, squeeze your knees up. So you press your feet down, press your butt back so your sit bones are flaring wide. You're tilting forward. So there's that same forward tilt of your pelvis that you did on your back. It's just going to feel different here because now you're not on your back. So tilt forward like you're overarching your spine, and then walk yourself all the way out. And then to balance that overarch in the spine, draw your low belly in and up, like you're trying to lift your hip points away from your thighs, and draw your low rib cage down and back so that you feel the wideness of your thoracic spine. Good. And it doesn't matter how low or how far forward you come, if you can do those things, is that's opening the lower back and that's opening the hips. Good. Release the squeeze of the knees if you're still holding it. Stay forward. Nice. And then walk yourself all the way back up. Good job. Place your block to the side. Good. For fun, bring the bottoms of your feet together. Come up on your tippy toes. If you're sitting on a blanket here, come off of the blanket. Again, this is just for fun. Why not? Good. So tippy toes to the floor, knees wide, reach for your ankles or your feet. Good. Start to find your balance point on your sit bones like you're coming into boat pose, and then take your feet up off the floor and come into what feels like a balancing squat. So your knees go wide like you're doing a happy baby. Good. I know sometimes we take this straight out to a straddle. I want you to stop in that happy baby point where your knees are pulling back and you have to what? Lift your spine. So pull your chest up. That's that sternum lift. And then draw your low ribs back and press down into your sacrum and squeeze your knees towards your outer ribs and then lift your chest again. Good. Now, if you want to take it all the way out to that full straddle, go for it. Nice, Susan. Good, Sarah. Nice, Valerie. Good, Kristen. Awesome. Good, Lorraine and Joanne. And then bend the knees again, nice and skillful, nice and graceful. Bring the feet back to the floor, Baddha Konasana, arms to the sky. Ta-da. Yay. Thanks for doing that. All right, let the hands go. Roll forward to hands and knees. Downward facing dog. And that was a lot of, just the hip work on the floor, right? Which maybe felt really good, but want to wake your mind up a little bit. And it's true, when we get in that mode where we're trying to get somewhere, we forget to have fun with what we're doing. That's important for, again, lower chakras as well, first and second chakras, that you have to have an element of fun. Otherwise, there's not balance, right? Good. Take the right leg up and back behind you, down dog split. Good. Nice, you guys. Reach out through that right heel a little longer. Good. And then press back through that. Pull your hips back. Really pull your hips back and press out. Good. Because again, I want this to be about your groin. Nice. And then step the right foot forward between the hands. Lunge. Good. Take your back heel flat. Baby toe parallels the back of your mat. Warrior 2. Cartwheel the arms up. Good. Take your right hand to the outside of your right knee, please. Good. Press your knee wide into your hand. Yep. And now take your left hand to your left hip. So you're pressing your right knee wide into your right hand, and now push your left hip back into your left hand. What? Yeah. So you're pushing back towards the back of your mat with your left hip, and you're pushing wide with your right knee. Now draw your low belly in, feel your hip points lift, and now let yourself go deeper into the lunge, but keep pushing your left hip back into your left hand. Good. And scoop your belly, lift that right hip point higher towards the top of your mat, let your thigh go deeper into the lunge. If your knee is passing your ankle, take your feet longer. Good. Nice, you guys. Now maintain that. Stretch both arms up to the sky. Feel the legs pulling wide, but press or squeeze your feet towards each other. Nice. Arms up to the sky, Virginia. Good. Take hold of your right wrist with your left hand. Pull to the back of your mat. So you're still in warrior 2. Good. So reverse warrior, pull. Left hand holds right wrist, pull. Thighs go wide, drop deeper into the lunge. Yeah. Good, you guys. And then come back to center, arms wide. Nice job. Cartwheel the hands down to the floor. Spin your back heel up. Good. Drop that knee down to the floor. Anjaneyasana. Inhale the arms up to the sky. Use a blanket there if you need. Inhale the arms up. Good. And then release the hands down to the floor. Lift the back knee. Keep the back heel lifted straight in your right leg. If you need blocks underneath the hands, use them. So keep the back heel up, but straight in your front thigh. You got it. Again, squeezing the feet towards each other. Lift your butt up and back. Lean forward, but pull your butt up and back. Nice. And then bend the front knee again. Drop the back knee down to the floor. Inhale the arms up. Anjaneyasana. Good. Front knee over the front ankle. Nice. Rib cage drawn in and up and back. Nice. Release the hands down. Lift the back knee, straighten the front thigh again. Good. Nice. Pull up through your pelvis. Squeeze your feet together, but pull your hips back. Nice. And then bend the front knee again. Release the back knee down to the floor. Anjaneyasana. One more breath. Inhale. Good. And then take your hands to your front thigh, please. Press that thigh forward so you allow your pelvis to go deep. So go deeper into the Anjaneyasana. Go deeper into the lunge. Let your pelvis move forward. Press down through that back knee. And now engage the low belly. Pull your belly up away from your thigh. Round your back as you push into the hands against the thigh. Good. Nice. So you're moving the pelvis forward, the hip girdle forward, but then you're pulling back, making space. Awesome. And then slowly release, please. Both hands come down to the floor. Good. Lift the back knee again. Both hands inside the front foot. Walk to your left until you come to the center of your mat. Wide legs. Prasarita Padottanasana. Good. So feet are parallel to the short edges of your mat. Nice. Good. Turn both feet out to 45 degrees. I know your feet are wide. Keep them wide. And then you're just going to let yourself go into little mini lunges. So not a whole lunge, side lunges to the side. So let yourself sway to the right and then to the left, keeping your torso in the center as much as you can. So again, you're moving the weight of your pelvis right and left, but you're keeping your torso in the same position as much as you can. Good. And again, you're paying attention that as you start to bend one knee, what happens to the opposite thigh as it starts to straighten? Is your pelvis rotating forward? Is it collapsing? Where does it feel like it gets stuck? So can you keep your low belly drawn in here the whole time, lifting your hip points up away from your thighs so that as you move from side to side, it's like you're lubricating the joint, not just finding the, that's how I get stuck on that side, and that's how I get stuck on the other. So you never go to that full place where there's nowhere else to go. You let yourself stay in the fluid movement from side to side. Good. And then come back to center, please. Straighten both legs, turning the toes forward. Nice job. Good. Bring your hands to your hips. Come all the way up to stand. Good. Heel toe your feet just a little bit closer to each other, and then turn both feet out to 45 degrees again. What you imagine 45 degrees in, right? We say that, but nobody here has a protractor. So you're kind of guessing at what 45 degrees is. Good. And then start to bend your knees like you're coming into a high squat, and watch where your knees point, both knees. Your knees should be pointing towards the second or third toe of each foot. If that is not what's happening, don't change your knees, change your feet. I want you to turn your feet so that your second toe is pointing in the direction of your knees. Good. Don't lie to yourself. Thank you. And then pressing your hands onto your thighs, round your back. Good. As you round your back and you lift your hip points up and you feel your tail start to drop. So you're finding that neutral angle of your pelvis and your ribs draw back, rounded, rounded, rounded. Good. Start to bring yourself up to vertical only as much as you can before you have to arch your lower back. So you keep lifting into that roundedness of your low back, of your middle back, and then just stay there for a moment and feel your thighs going wide and squeeze your feet towards each other. And don't be mad if you're like, this isn't a full squat. I just want you to feel your hips. I want you to feel your groins. I want you to feel your pelvis. Good. And then straighten the legs again, turn your toes forward. Reach behind you, hold opposite elbows or reverse prayer if that's available. So palms together behind the heart, and then forward fold. Nice. Good. Still squeezing the feet towards each other, lifting the hips up towards the sky. Good. So you're looking for this feeling of connection of how your legs are integrated into your pelvis so that squat pose isn't something that your legs have to endure. But your legs and your groins and your hips are opening so that they can allow that downward action of the spine while the spine is maintaining its upward action. So it's not everything just going down. Release the hands down to the floor. Good. Walk back to the top of your mat. Right toes turn forward, step back, downward facing dog. Good. Slide forward to plank pose. Lower down slow, coming through knees first if you need. Bend your knees, kick your heels in towards your butt. Hands alongside your ribs for Cobra. Press your thighs down towards the floor. Scoop your low belly. So already I want you to draw your low rib cage in and up. Good. Navel engaged. So as you start to extend your spine forward, coming up into this Cobra variation, you're pulling from the tops of your thighs. Top of your pelvis pulls forward, and then lift up head, neck, and chest. Keep your thighs pressing down, your heels squeezing in. Why? Because if we don't pay attention to the hip flexors and the thighs coming into squat, we're going to get caught again. This also affects your pelvis. If your quads are tight, squat's not happening. Good. Slowly release. Nice. Press back, downward facing dog. Good. Left leg up and back behind you, down dog split. Walk your hands back just a tiny bit so that you're moving your weight back onto that right heel a little bit more, and really pull back through your pelvis. Because again, I want this to feel like you're actually doing more of a split so that you get that stretch through the groins. Good. And then maybe even feel like you're squeezing your feet towards each other as you reach out through your heel. Nice. And then step the foot forward between the hands, lunge. Good. Drop the back knee on, warrior two first. My apologies. Drop your left heel, right heel. My God, warrior two. I'll find it. I'll find out where I am. Good. Left hand to your outer left knee. Left hand to outer left knee. Good. Press that knee wide. So again, you're looking at your knee pointing at your second toe, right? We say this all the time. Pay attention to if you actually ever look. Where is your second toe? And is your knee actually in line with it? Now right hand to your right hip, that's your back hip. Press your right hip back into your hand. Press your left knee wide. Good. Now lift your left hip point up towards the top of your mat. Nice. And let yourself go deeper into the lunge. Good. As your front thigh goes a little bit deeper, your back thigh has to move back. So send your back thigh straighter or pull it wider. Good. Right hip pulls back into that right hand. Nice. And then take both arms straight up towards the ceiling, please. Pulling your thighs wide. Right hand holds left wrist, lean to the back of your mat. Keep pressing your left knee wide. I know your hand isn't there anymore and you're distracted by this back bending thing. Push your left knee wide. And then pull your right thigh back. And then push through your right hip and lift your left hip point up. This is all these little things of creating a balanced pelvis. Good. And then come all the way back up to center. Nice job. Cartwheel the hands down to the floor. Lift the back knee or lift the back heel. Geez. Drop the back knee. Asana. Use a blanket if you need. Good. Squeezing back on the front heel, chest up, sternum up. Good. Release the hands down to the floor. Use blocks if you need. Lift the back knee. Straighten your front thigh. Keep the back heel lifted. So I want the legs a little bit wider so that you have more of this sensation of really working the energy of pulling up while your groins and your inner thighs have to stretch. Good. Butt up towards the sky. Back thigh, super important here. Good. Bend the front knee again. Drop the back knee. Come back to Asana. This is also getting into that forward and backwards action that opens up the lower spine, right? So chest up. Good. And then release the hands down to the floor. Lift the back knee, straighten the front thigh. Again, back heel can stay as lifted as it needs to. Squeeze the feet together. Pull your hips up. Good. Nice, you guys. Outer right hip will spin slightly forward to keep your hip points balanced. Good. Come forward again. Bend the front knee. Drop the back knee to the floor. Asana one more time. Arms to the sky. Good. And then both hands to the front thigh, please. Push forward. So you're letting your pelvis go deeper. Letting your knee is even allowed to come beyond the ankle here because it's not direct weight bearing. So if you want to let the knee, let your pelvis really go forward, let it go. And then still pressing against the thigh, round your back. So pull the ribs back. Try to pull the low navel back. Try to pull your hip points, the front of your pelvis up off of your thighs. Good. And you're lifting that tilt of the pelvic bones forward and up. Nice. Good, you guys. And then slowly release, hands down to the floor. Lift the back knee again. Both hands inside the front foot. Walk to your right until you come to the center of your mat. Wide legs. Good. Turn both feet out to 45 degrees. Again, let yourself move between both side lunges, paying attention to if your knees are pointing towards your second toes. Again, if you have no idea, look. And if that's not what's happening, of course, we can say widen the inner knees and you can try to do that. If it's still not pointing at your second toe, change your feet. Good. Keep your torso center, please. Nice. Next time you go to the right, I want you to stay there. So right side lunge, right knee is bent. Good. And again, you're widening that inner knee and pulling that right butt cheek in towards the center. So just a side lunge. Yes. So, yep. There you go. Good, you guys. And then squeeze the feet towards each other, please. Scoop that low belly, stretch your arms out wide, airplane arms. Hold. Good. Chest up. Nice, Lorraine and Joanne. Good, Joy. You got it. Nice, Mark. Awesome, you guys. And then release the hands down. Come back to center. Go to your left side lunge. Again, keeping your torso as middle as you can. So you get the sensation of I have to widen. My knee has to widen. My left butt cheek has to hug in. I have to squeeze my feet to balance that wideness. And then my low belly has to engage. My back has to engage so I can stretch my arms out. So take your arms out wide, airplane arms. Lift your shoulders in line with your hips. So Valerie, shoulders up a little more. Good, Virginia. Nice, Kristen. Good. Throat up, Joy. Left knee a little wider, Joanne. That's it. And then pull your right shin forward. I know it's going to feel weird. Good. Release the hands down to the floor. Awesome, you guys. Turn your toes to face straight ahead. Good. Bring your hands to your hips. Come all the way up to stand. Good. Heel toe your feet a tiny bit closer and then both feet turn out. I'm not even going to say 45 degrees. Turn out to the point where you know that when you bend your knees, it's going to be pointing towards your second toe. Don't come too close together, Sarah. So you're still in a high squat, which means the feet need to be pretty wide. Good. So as you start to bend your knees out wide, take your arms straight up towards the sky. So to do this, straighten the legs again. Come all the way back up. Interlace your fingers, press heels of the hands up towards the sky. Standing straight. Good. Now, pull your low rib cage in. Feel your hip points lifting up. Good. As you start to bend your knees wide, maintain this. You are pushing up through your hands. So as the knees go wide, the pelvis descends only to that point where you don't have to arch your back. And then straighten your legs, come all the way back up. Push through the arms, pull up through the tops of your thighs. Everything pulls up. Good. And now keep that lift through your ribs. Bend your knees wide again. Let the pelvis descend. Again, only to that point where you don't have to arch your back. Keep lifting your hip points. Pressing into your feet. And then come all the way back up to straight. Good. One more time. Ribs in. Good. Start to bend the knees wide, thighs wide as you drop the pelvis. Don't arch. Ribs in. Good. Nice. Now lift your heels. What? Good. As you lift your heels, let your pelvis descend a little more, almost like you're trying to pull your knees up to your armpits. Good. So you engage the tops of the thighs. Nice. And then heels press down to the floor, straighten the legs. Good. Turn your toes forward. Reach behind you. Hold opposite elbows, other arm on top, or reverse prayer, palms together. Still legs wide to the side, Lorraine and Joanne. Sorry, it was just Joanne. And then bow forward, please. Forward fold. Nice, you guys. Good. And then release the hands down to the floor, please. Nice job. Walk forward towards the top of your mat. Left toes turn forward. Step back, downward facing dog. Deep breath in, deeper breath out. Good. Come forward to plank pose. Lower down slow, coming through knees first if you need. Bend both knees, kick your heels in towards your butt. Reach back for the feet or the ankles. Good. Press your heels down towards your butt. Glue them there. Keep your thighs down to the floor. And then begin to bend your elbows to lift head, neck, and chest. Keep your thighs on the floor. Keep your heels towards your butt. Good. Hug your knees a little closer, Joy. Nice. So bend your elbows. This is also for your shoulders. Awesome. Release the forehead back to the floor, please. Keep holding the feet. Good. This time, kick your feet back into your hands. Start to draw the thighs up away from the floor, but draw the front of your pelvic bones forward, navel in. And then again, bend the elbows a little bit to lift head, neck, and chest. And then once you've had the lift of your chest with your elbows bent, if you want to straighten the arms, go for it. Good, but keep lifting the sternum up. Don't lose that. Don't just pull through the arms. Lift your sternum up and low rib cage draws in. Nice, this is upward bow. And then slowly release. Nice job. Press up to hands and knees, take a child's pose. I know, you thought we were just gonna do pigeon and then do squat, right? Pigeon is a fabulous hip opener. But if we don't actually work the hips, we don't actually work through rotation, we don't actually work the muscles in and around the groin, the lower back, then it doesn't necessarily do what we want it to do, right? We can pull ourselves apart thinking that there's one thing that needs to be accomplished in order to get where we want to go. And it means that we miss everything else, right? On a mala, there's 108 beads. Which one is the most important one? Trick question, right? Because if they're not all connected, you don't have a mala. You take any one of them out, the mala is less than it could be, less complete. Good. Walk yourself back up to hands and knees. Grab your block. One more hip opening torture, and then I'll let you do squat. How about that? So you're going to take your block flat to its flat setting in front of you, and you're stepping your, so turn it just vertical. Yeah, but flat. There you go. And you're going to step your right foot up onto the block, left knee on the floor. So you're coming into Anjaneyasana with your foot up on the block. Good. So make sure you can come into a full Anjaneyasana with that foot on the block. Good. Nice. And then bring your hands down inside that foot. Yep. Walk towards the upper left-hand corner of your mat. And here's a funny one, right? Come on down to your forearms. Widen your inner knee and inner thigh. So that doesn't mean let your knee fall open, but it does mean that you are pushing wide so that you have space for the torso to descend. Good. Nice, you guys. So try to watch here that again, so Valerie, don't let your knee fall all the way in. Keep it straight up on top of the ankle. There you go. Yeah, pull your right butt cheek back a little more. Good. Nice, you guys. So it might be interesting here is to come up on your fingertips again, come up onto your hands, still on the inside there, but take your right hand to your inner right knee. So your left hand is on the floor. Good. And then just give a little pressure of that hand out into the knee. So it's like you're pushing out wide with your right hand, falling onto your left hand, almost twisting a little bit. So you can turn a little bit of the ribs, push a little bit wide into that knee, and then squeeze your right shin in. So add pressure of the knee back into your hand. Good, but push wide. Good, so the inner knee, Susan, instead of the hip. So you're pushing your knee wide. Yep, and then squeezing in. Yeah, and that's great if you're on the thigh and not directly on the knee joint. That's perfect. Good. And then release that, come on back. Good, step that right foot down off of the block. Downward facing dog, because that will feel better. Pedal your feet. And again, I hope you take, again, I designed these sequences or these classes so that if you wanted to in your mind, you're like, oh, that really helped me feel something in my hips, or oh my gosh, that was so difficult. Maybe that's an exercise to keep coming back to. Is these things are meant to be done over and over and over again, right? Not just as doing poses, but you do these actions or you stay in these stretches because that's what's going to increase your overall range of muscle stretch and therefore joint capability in many cases. Good. All right. Drop the knees down to the floor or step your left foot forward if you'd like, whichever is easier, but you're taking your left foot up onto the block in Anjaneyasana. So I find it easier to come down to the knees first, but it is up to you. The left foot forward onto your block, Anjaneyasana, both hands inside the front foot. Good. Let yourself drop forward any amount towards that upper right-hand corner. You're letting your pelvis descend forward. Good. And dropping the shoulders. If you can come down to your forearms, awesome. If not, don't worry about it, but let your shoulders drop a little lower. And I'm well aware that this is an intense position. Good. Malasana, Garland. And garlands are used as adornment in Indian tradition. So, you know, the elephants would be given a garland. The gods and the goddesses are given a garland. So your mala can be a tool. Your malasana can be a tool, brings you back to center. It can also be a celebration. Celebration that you get to return home after you've forgotten for a long time, or you've gotten lost, or you've been off doing something scary or difficult. You get to come home. So there's this celebration, and this is our balance between our work and our joy. We're not here for one or the other, we're here for both. Come back up onto your hands, please. Good. Left hand comes to the inside of your left knee. So you're leaning on the right hand. You can even twist just a little bit, opening the ribs. And then you're pressing that left hand into your knee. So you're pressing wide. And then you're squeezing your shin and squeezing your knee in. So you're adding pressure back against that hand. Good. You got it, Mark. Just lean onto your right hand there. Good. So you're pressing wide and squeezing in. Good. So your butt cheek still pushes wide, but your knee squeezes in. That's it. Good, Lorraine. Good. Don't lean too much of your right hip towards the floor, Joy. Keep your right hip lifted. Awesome. And then slowly come on out. Nice. Downward facing dog. Good. Good. Walk your feet forward towards your hands. Separate your feet as wide as your mat. Remember roughly the angle of your feet that worked with your knees pointing over your second toe or third toe. Try to recreate that. Good. And then begin to bend your knees nice and wide with that feeling that you're drawing your low belly in and up already, dropping the hips, bringing the hips low. And then on your fingertips or on blocks, right? Start to lift your chest. Good. So you can come all the way down to that full squat, Joy, if you'd like. Yeah. Nice. Lift your hip points. Lift your sternum. Good. Elbows can be to the inside of the knees, but then squeeze your knees towards your elbows. And again, can you feel that that squeezing, right, solidifies that feeling of your hips holding you all the way up where your thighs meet your groins, but your groins are reaching down to the floor. And then low rib cage draw in, push up through the crown of your head. Good. So as much as your pelvis is dropping, your chest is lifting. Nice. And just maintain that, right? That there's the hug of the inner thighs towards the elbows, but the widening of your sit bones and the ribs drawing in and the crown pulling up, but your tail pulling straight down. It's a squat. It's not just downward energy. It's everywhere energy. And in the center of that is where? What feels like the center? One more breath. Should feel like a lot of work. Release the hands, please. Good. Come on down to sit. Stretch your legs out in front of you, feet as wide as your mat. Good. Reach for your ankles or your shins. Deep breath in, nice long spine. Flex your feet. And then as you exhale, bend the elbows, forward fold. Good. Yeah, nothing complicated. It's just a forward fold. Just to do something different. Nice. And then come all the way back up. What would you say if I asked you to roll forward and back on your spine again, and to do that backwards roll and then come up straight into squat? Yeah, I can't hear what you'd say because you're muted. So you're going to do it. So bring the knees towards each other, please, from your seated position. And you're going to roll on your spine. Roll, roll, roll. Good. And if coming straight into squat feels like, no way, Jose, it's not going to happen, coming into chair or version of chair would also work. And then separating the feet from there. So give yourself a little bit of momentum, and then you're planting your feet and coming up into squat. I know. Yeah, this gives you a clear indication of how your lower abdominals are working with your legs, or if they're not working together at all. Good, Valerie. Good. Nice, you guys. Find it. Good. Find your way back into squat, however you do it. Awesome. And then stretch your arms up to the sky. Yeah. Reach, reach, reach. Press into your heels as though you're about to straighten your legs. I want you to feel that moment where you're about to straighten your legs, but don't. So press into your heels. Feel your glutes engage, your muscles activate around your sit bones, chest up, navel in. You're about to come up to stand. And then root that sit bone down. Nice. And release the hands to the floor, straighten the legs and bow. Good. Forward fold, straighten the legs. Your last variation, right? So that's Malasana, the as the squat variation. Bring your feet together this time. This is another version of what is referred to as Malasana, Garland Pose. And come up onto your tippy toes. You're going to keep your inner edges of your feet together, bend your knees wide like a little frog squat, dropping your hips towards your heels. So it's almost like you're doing Baddha Konasana, but you're balancing on the balls of your feet. And then you're bringing your chest forward towards the floor, like you're doing a forward fold. And then you're letting your heels reach for the floor, like you're going to take your feet flat. Good, but you're still in that frog squat. Good. So this is one place that you could just stay here, right? And feel the openness through the lower spine. You could squeeze your knees towards your ribs here. That might feel good. If you want to go for the bind version of this, then you're going to stay where you are, but you're going to bring your upper arms to the front of your shins and wrap the arms around to hold hands behind your ankles, behind your heels. So you're literally hugging the front of your legs with your arms and holding hands behind your heels. You got it. So the legs squeeze in, squeeze towards the middle ribs, and then the arms are in front of the shins, holding hands behind your heels. So your heels are softening towards the floor. You're still in that deep forward fold. Good. Long back of your throat. Squeeze the center. Hug to the center. Good. Even if you're just balancing here, this is a lot. A lot of things going on at once. And then slowly unwind the arms, please. Come on down to your butt. And come on down to your backs. Garland pose. Good. Bring your knees back in towards your chest. Take your right thigh on top of your left. Separate your feet. Reach for your ankles or your shins. Again, a lot of external hip rotation. What will soften that balance, that is internal hip rotation. Good. Release and switch. Take the other leg on top. Good. Keep your low back on the floor. Then unwind your legs. Come into happy baby. Because I want you to just see what it feels like. You're doing a ton of work. This is basically squat pose on its back, right? So can you have the same attitude of trying to find all directional energy, is that you're actually pressing down through the lowest part of your sacrum, and you're feeling your low ribs drawing down and wide, and you're feeling your sternum lift. And the knees will go where the knees go, and you're stacking the heels in line with the knees and watching the angle of your toes. So there should still be that little hugging in of the inner knees. And that hugging in probably means that you can engage your low belly and press your low back down to the floor more. Good. Valerie, you could move your feet wider for sure. There you go. Nice. Even happy baby, like we take it for granted, thinking that if I'm just on my back and I pull my knees down, it's going to open my hips. Only until it gets stuck in your groin. Or until your low back says, I'm not in a position where my knees can go any further. Where is the center? Every single part of the pose matters. And if you skip one, ignore one, get pulled in only one direction, you lose the center. And you lose the open place that you're looking for. Maybe it means you lose your playfulness. You lose the easefulness. Bring your knees back together, please. Squeeze. Good. Scoot your hips over to the left, drop your knees to the right. Spinal twist. And come back to center, please. Scoot your hips over to the right, drop your knees to the left. And come back to center, squeeze the knees in, bring your forehead up to meet your knees, so curl into a little ball. I know you're almost done, squeeze. And then what I want you to do is you're gonna keep your shoulders lifted, but extend your legs out and your arms out so you're in like a big star. So almost parallel to the floor, yeah. Good, arms up, legs up, like a big star. That's it, good. And then squeeze everything back in, curl into that little ball. Good, and then explode out into that star, extend, but keep your center held firm. Yeah, and then everything squeezes in one more time. Explode out, but as you explode out, keep pulling the center in. Keep drawing in towards the center as you extend. And then knees in, hug. Good, roll forward and back. Maybe move the knees in a circle so you're massaging the lower back. Awesome. And then slowly come back to stillness. Stretch your legs out in front of you, flexing the feet. Take your arms up alongside your ears. So you're stretching the arms all the way up. Legs all the way out. Press down through your heels. Flex your feet. Like a supine Tadasana, draw your low rib cage down and back. Widen through your middle back. Feel the tops of your thighs root down to the floor. But your knees are soft. Throat is long. Sternum lifts. Low belly softly engaged. One more breath, reach out in all directions. And then release everything. Let the feet drop open, arms come alongside you, palms up. And again, come back to your breath and the knowledge that the center cannot be found in just the inhale or the exhale or even between them. The center of you is not one direction versus the other. So Shavasana, the place where everything is included. Celebrated. Very gently bring the awareness back to your breath. Letting your body begin to stretch and move in whatever ways serve it well. Drawing the knees in towards your chest. Roll to your right side. And take a moment before you begin to push the floor away. Come back to an upright seated position. Bring the hands together in front of the heart center, palm to palm. Or again, whatever mudra has been serving you well. It's said that asana, all of asana, the physical poses, is meant to help us understand the meaning of opposites, how they work together. And so we really only can comprehend a concept fully by understanding its opposition, right? How it moves in both directions. That's how we understand things. So at the same time, when yoga talks about there being a center where all things come together, how do you comprehend that? Unless you let yourself feel what it's like to be pulled apart. We all know that. So the practice is to let all of those energies that pull at you also be what tells you where the center is, where nothing is pulling, but there's a full awareness of I'm reaching up and I'm reaching down and right and left, and nothing is being left out. Everything is included. So there's that feeling of there being the unity, but there's also the celebration that center is home. So Garland Pose is this, right? It brings us deep down into the center so that we understand what that is. But we don't understand it by pushing everything away. We understand it by feeling the oppositions and how it brings us back together. So this is the practice, right? Your mala can be your tool that is your work, your meditation, but it can also be the celebration. So do both, be both. The more you feel yourself being pulled apart, look the other direction so that you find where center is again. And close the sound of Om, deep breath in. Sliding the thumbs up to the space between the eyebrows. Namaste, everybody. Thank you guys so much. Just your heads up, this is the last Monday that this class is going to be on Mondays. We're moving it to Thursday, okay? So Thursday at 4:30, yeah? Email announcement will be going out, so you'll know. But just so you know that all of you are like, I like this class. It's not on Mondays anymore. How dare you show up on the last Monday, right? Come on Thursdays. Thursdays at 4:30. Just rearrange your schedule.